As we are winding down 2025, thinking about planning ahead for 2026, what are the top three tips for people watching this to improve their financial health in the new year?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I feel like the topic of finance is top of mind when January comes around. And I like to think of financial wellness more as a wellness practice. It makes it a lot more fun and not as stressful. So, my top three money tips, I'll be quick, and they're pretty high level. They might be, a little cliche. But first is I like to have a weekly money ritual, I call it whatever you want, check in, ritual. And I think of this like we have our everything shower, we have our resets on Sundays, we, go to yoga, do whatever. And it's like that one little 30-minute thing you do that completely rewires your week. So I like to just sit down and like have a Sunday reset with my money, light a candle, even 5 minutes will lower your anxiety so much. And just look at three things during those rituals, kind of what came in, what went out, and what's coming up. And you can just kind of have a dopamine rebalance and exposure therapy with your bank account. So that's number one. Number two is just to be specific with your goals. A lot of people are like, I should invest more. I'm in 2026, I'm going to save more. And that doesn't do anything. It actually hurts us. But saying something specific, like I want to save 5K by February, because that's my around average monthly expense. You can work backwards from that and then check in on your weekly money rituals to see how you're, getting to that goal. So being more specific with goals. And then number three, which is probably the most cliche, is just to rewire your relationship with money. A lot of people who have money stress either hate it or resent people who have it, and it ends up being an excuse. So I think that to combat this during my weekly rituals, I always practice financial gratitude. I mean, there's plenty of studies that prove that gratitude makes you more successful, more productive, all of these things. And if you just take a step back and think of one thing you're grateful for, like even being able to buy the Starbucks that made you smile like one day that week, it really will. You'll start to see a shift in how you approach money. And if you're kind of like mind open, heart open to it, it's going to come flowing in, if that makes sense.
I like the fact that it is a relationship with money, and people don't really look at it like that. But we know there are toxic relationships, and there are people that are trying to come into relationships to interfere with it.
Absolutely.
Scammers. So, well, let's talk about the scams that are out there, because it seems like today we get so much email, we get so many texts. These
Hmm.
scams are becoming more sophisticated. They're becoming smarter. They're taking advantage of our preoccupation with different things. So, what do
Hmm.
we need to look out for when it comes to scams?
Absolutely. And actually, I had a friend who lost a large sum of money the other day from one of these scams. And I'll tell you what it is, but I'll start by saying we used to think that scams were for kind of our grandparents and older people. And we're seeing such sophistication, like you said, that it can happen to anyone. And then guess what happens when you get scammed? So much shame. So you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to ask for help. It's so embarrassing. Here to tell you it's not. It's happening to people every day. The scam that happened to my friend was had to do with her email forwarding. Basically, she was paying an invoice via wire instructions that were sent to her over email. And what scammers can do now is go into your account if they get access to your email and just be on watch for any wire instructions and
Mhm.
jump in and change those instructions to be sent out to someone else. So she essentially wired money to the wrong person, and didn't find out till years, months later. So what you can do there is go into your Google settings if you have a Google account, Outlook, whatever, and make sure that forwarding is off. Because if scammers get access to your email, they'll just quietly turn on forwarding and they'll intercept every single email. So that's one. Number two is just to always call to confirm any wire instructions. Like a lot of scammers are able to hack into your phone and change, call from Goldman Sachs if it's a random number. You answer, they're like, hey, there was a fraud on your card. Did you just buy this couch in Oklahoma? And you're like, oh my gosh, no. And they're like, okay, send me that 3-digit code to your phone. The second you give them that, they're in your phone and they have your
Mm.
bank account. So always hang up, even if you think it's your bank calling you, and be like, let me call you right back, and call the bank directly from, your banking app, because they shouldn't be calling you out of the blue like that anyway. And you can never be too careful. And then of course, you can see a lot of these on our Instagram, but I've been encouraging my friends to just run the standard security scans on your laptops. which can be done by just restarting it simply. There's like websites like haveibeenpawned.com where you can put in your email and see if your email is out on the dark web. But the most important thing when it comes to cybersecurity is just not taking anything that's super urgently, if that makes sense. Like take a breath and even wait a day, whether it be a medical bill that's urgently needs to be paid or taxes that urgently need to be paid. Nothing is that urgent. You would rather do your due diligence and make sure than lose a bunch of money or have, your identity compromised, God forbid. So once again, holidays are an excellent time to take advantage of that. Like even some scammers are changing slightly the URL in some of your favorite, shopping websites. So it'll be like aritzia.us.com instead of like aritzia.com, and it'll be like half off this jacket. You click buy from your dopamine addiction, of course, and then they have all your bank account information. So if you like something, I have a wish list that I go through on my money ritual, and it forces me to wait 24 hours to purchase things, but just stay on high alert. And the great thing about scammers, they're horrible, obviously, but the best thing about them is if they try you once and it doesn't work, they'll move on to the next, because there's plenty of people who will fall for this. So if you just take, tiny steps to protect yourself, then they're going to move on and you'll be safe.
Yeah, and every dollar counts, every penny counts now. People are living, and it's a huge deal here in New York. I mean, with the affordability crisis becoming front and center in the recent mayoral election, now across the country, we're talking about it. No city is immune to this. People really struggling out there. And with who knows what the job market's going to be as we go into the new year. For the people, and we read of these studies all the time, younger people are now living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for those people who are trying to stretch every dollar?
Absolutely. I think just once again, coming back to your relationship with money, and the scarcity mindset can really hurt you ultimately. And it can kind of cloud your judgment as well, because it treats your brain like fight or flight, which rightfully so, living paycheck to paycheck is scary. But just checking in and kind of like doing a mindful practice of, is my body okay? Can I make rent this month? Writing down exactly what you need to stretch that dollar, and just finding ways. Honestly, ChatGPT is a great resource in situations like stretching every dollar, to find discounts and just make sure that, you're not spending out of a scarcity kind of fight or flight mode at any point. And I would just encourage those people to, rewire their relationship with money and not be scared of it or hate it, because it's so easy if you're in those situations to resent people with money and resent, money in general, because it's so hard to stretch that dollar.
And so that is frustrating when you're trying to compare yourself. So I think that's a great tip. For people who have maybe a 9 to 5 and they're fortunate to be working, but they also are trying to pick up a side hustle, or maybe they're freelancing. What key moves, what winning money moves do you have? Do you advise people that follow you that can really get the upper hand?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, congrats if you have, a steady job that you enjoy. That's amazing. If you're entering kind of the side hustle era, which most people are, I would encourage you to keep kind of all expenses completely separate. Separate bank accounts, open an LLC. I'm not a tax advisor. This is not tax advice, but open an LLC, open a separate entity to keep everything completely separate for your business. Not only does that just keep everything clean from your traditional 9 to 5, and then you can see, like for me, I was modeling. I had a separate LLC for modeling. And once I saw that account was growing much faster than my banking account, I was like, oh, maybe I should spend more time, doing this. So it not only gives you kind of that clear, separation, but it also gives your side hustle legs and like makes it real, and which can in some ways motivate you to build a website, do other things in that separate entity. So I would encourage just keeping everything separate and allocating real time to doing it, but also not to attach shame. Like if you don't get it done. When I was at, Deutsche Bank, I was there all day working on side things at night, and I would really beat myself up if I, didn't get enough done on the side thing. And the point of a side hustle is like to follow your passion. So once it stops becoming fun, maybe you're doing something wrong there.
Yeah, that's a great point. When I think about people today and developing that relationship with money and the candle and we're ready and we got the coffee or we, whatever we're doing and we're, trying to look at, okay, where's the money coming in? Where's it going out? It seems like an overwhelming process if you've never done that before. Because some things you look at credit card statements. Well, it's not really for the current 30 days. It's a statement sort of thing. And people get confused by that. Or if people have a checking account and they're looking at, how all of that flows. How do you kind of start from scratch for somebody who's never really looked at the flow of money?
Absolutely. And it's analysis paralysis and like overwhelm is probably, theme words of this generation and everything that's being thrown at us. So I completely get that. I always tell my friends who have this overwhelm problem, write down what do I have, put that into, chat, look it up, whatever, what do I need and how do I get there? And a lot of people see all of these like this financial advice on social media and it's like what to invest in, crypto, private markets, this, that. It's like, don't even think about what you need to invest in. What accounts do you have open? Or even behind that, do you have all your credit card debt paid off? Like, let's start there. So I think breaking things up into actual bite-sized pieces, and thankfully, it's a blessing and a curse that we have information, a world of information at our fingertips to figure out what we need to do. But pen to paper, writing down, okay, I have a mountain of credit card debt. Anywhere you look up online is going to say, do that first, pay that off first, focus on that. So each week you can just put a little bit towards your credit card debt and that will make you feel better. Once you're done with that, what's next? What account do I need to open an account first? Where do I open an account? And then attack that task. And rather than attacking like all of this at once of I need to open an account, invest in everything, get ahead, be a millionaire by the time I'm 25. It's like calm down, just focus on, your liabilities, honestly, what's giving you the most stress, probably debt. Let's focus on paying that off first. And then we can move on to kind of like the investments of things. So I think just like breaking things down, like any overwhelming task, really makes it the cure to anxiety is action, I always say. So like just doing one little thing before you kind of try to look at the whole mountain ahead of you.
Yeah, that's smart. Just a couple more. I know you're super busy, but when you think about people today, and if they're able to get a little bit of savings together, that savings is not really building money unless it's in a certain account. How do you get people to go to that next step where maybe they want to dabble in the stock market? Maybe they want to get an account that is actually making money. We hear that, right? Like have your money make money. What do you tell people trying to get into that side of things?
Yeah, again, I break it down into like what they have and what they need. If their money is sitting in a checking account, then a high yield savings account is where they can start. And then my next step is to get 3 months of savings of a cushion so that you have that before you start investing. The general rule of thumb with investing is the money you put in the market, you need to be comfortable with not seeing it for the next 5 years. That's kind of the general rule of thumb because, the market goes like this. So you need to be comfortable with it. But high yield savings account, 3 months, 3 months of living expenses, step one. And that's not so overwhelming. There's a million high yield savings accounts, right? And again, not like being married to finding the absolute highest yield because when you're saving, $20,000, $30,000, it's not going to move the needle, 0.5%. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I just don't know which one is perfect. Any yield is better than no yield. And then once you're ready to invest in the market, obviously educating yourself on what that means, which again, there's so many actual, credible resources from some of these big banks, UBS, Vanguard, Fidelity, ton of educational resources out there, Mary and Pip, a ton of educational resources out there, but broad-based ETFs, exchange traded funds that track the overall market are usually a great place to start because rather than putting all your bets on one individual company or security, you're buying a piece of this ETF and you get exposure to 500 companies, for example. So I think that we're seeing there's so much information out there that it's so overwhelming and it's almost like, oh, I just don't want to think about it because I don't know where to start. But taking it kind of one account and then one step and then one investment at a time is definitely the way to go.
So yeah, the 50-30-20 rule.
Yes.
A lot of people are talking about that. Can you explain it and what's your take?
Yeah, I have, mixed thoughts about the 50-30-20 rule. It basically says every paycheck you get, put 50 towards your needs, 30 towards your wants, and 20 towards kind of your longer term goals. And I think that the modern paycheck and kind of the modern, worker with maybe a main job, maybe multiple side hustles, doesn't necessarily, like, their income's all over the place, that 50, 30, 20 for everything just doesn't really apply anymore. I have never, budgeting has always overwhelmed me, and I'm ADD. I think a lot of our generation is super ADD as well. So rather than, prescribing, I guess, a formula to every paycheck that I get, it's kind of as it comes in, I see where I need to allocate that paycheck. And again, I think prescribing an allocation to kind of the masses is not necessarily right either, because everyone's financial situation is so different. So that's why I really like the weekly check-ins with yourself, because, one week it could be you can put 50 towards your needs, 30 towards your wants, and 20 towards your goals. But the next week you might have a really good week or have extra money from side hustling. So you can put 30% towards your goals. So I know it's not really like a financial advisor answer, but I think that everyone is so different. And a lot of people are like, I need to do it this way, or I'm going to fail, or this person who succeeded did it this way, so I must do it that way. And just like, a doctor prescribes a certain remedy to everyone who has a different illness, it's like your financial situation is so unique and different. And also, have the confidence to know that you can make those decisions. It's not like if you put money in there's risks and everything, but I feel like there's so much fear around investing because it's so unknown, and it's really not. Wall Street does a great job of gatekeeping, and things like the 50, 30, 20 is kind of another, like, oh, it's just another thing I need to do and learn. Whereas, I don't think there's as much of a prescription for everyone. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Before we go, I got to ask, this Mary and Pip, this is like really taken off.
Oh, thank you.
You lived an incredible life. Did you ever think that you would be at this point in your life where you are right now?
Honestly, no, absolutely. A reality star turned, banker turned reality star turned entrepreneur. Absolutely not. But I think that my journey isn't as crazy as a lot of modern, people that are around my age life is, especially in New York City. We all have all these crazy ideas and we all want to do a million things. And I'm basically just combining kind of my creative crazy side with my 5 years on Wall Street and trying to create a product that, actually helps people.
So what's next?
Yeah, so I'm actually in the lab right now with my engineers. They just left, but we're working on an exciting platform that kind of combines psychology and money and all of the financial wellness tips that I was discussing into one place that will make it a lot easier for people. So stay tuned for that. Early next year, we'll be rolling out our beta program. But until then, just really honing in on this education piece through our socials and through our community.
That's amazing. Well, congrats on everything.